The beacon fired at 0340 local, and I didn't sleep after that. I had built it from a junction relay, stripped out of the dead water processor, a signal amplifier pulled from Counselor Meth's personal comm unit before he stopped needing it, 40 meters of copper shielding wire I'd unspooled from the settlement's east perimeter fence. It wasn't pretty. The transmission housing was a ration canister I'd sealed with thermal paste. The frequency calibration was manual, done by hand with a lamp and a reference chart I'd memorized. Because the chart itself had burned in the fire that took the northern quarter 8 months ago. I aimed it at the coalition's sector relay at Verith Station, the way the manual said to aim it, and I keyed the distress sequence, and I sat back and I waited. 18 of us left on Vessel 4. 11 months since the last supply run. 7 months since the last coalition signal on any frequency. I didn't know if the coalition was on, or if we were. The beacon was the last idea I had. I sat in the tower through the pale green dawn and watched us move across the broken plain and listened to carrier tone. The tone meant the beacon was broadcasting. The tone didn't mean anyone was listening. Tessine came up the ladder with water and sat beside me and didn't say anything for a while. Tessine was 8 years old and had her mother's patience and her father's habit of watching things carefully before she spoke. Mother and father were both in the northern quarter when the northern quarter burned. "Is it working?" she asked. "It's transmitting," I said. "That's not what I asked." I told her I didn't know. She nodded and went back down the ladder. I watched the plane. At 31 hours and 14 minutes after first transmission, something came out of the high atmosphere. I saw it on the passive scope first, a return I didn't recognize. Wrong silhouette for Coalition. Wrong silhouette for anything in my reference catalog. I ran the hull signature 3 times and got nothing. The ship was old in a way I couldn't place. The hull plating irregular and heavily patched. The engine's signature low and even. It was not a warship. It was not a warship in the way that a working dog is not a pet. Technically accurate and useless as a description. It was the size of a Coalition mid-range patrol cutter. And it was descending on a landing vector so precise it looked like the pilot had been here. 4. I hit the colony alarm and got 12 of the survivors into the shelter below the tower. Tessine refused to go. I didn't have the energy to argue. We stood at the tower window together and watched the ship settle into the flat ground 300 meters west of the settlement perimeter, and the landing struts came down, and the dust cleared, and nothing happened for a moment. Then the ramp dropped. 4 of them came down. They wore environment suits with the helmets sealed, and their faction markings, if they had any, were not visible. They carried equipment cases. One of them carried a medical kit. I could identify the case shape because I'd spent 7 months rationing what was left of ours. One of them carried a portable water processing unit, the kind that can run off solar cells and handle 400 liters a day. They walked toward the settlement without hailing us, without weapons visible, without any of the formal approach protocols I knew from Coalition first contact training. I went down to the perimeter gate and opened it. The one in front stopped 2 meters from me. The suit's external speaker came on. "Vessel 4 settlement?" The voice was female, flat, efficient. The language was unified Verith. Not perfectly accented, but fluent, and spoken with the particular cadence of someone who learned it from a recording. "Yes," I said. "Kale Orvith. Survey Corvette Ardent's margin. We received your distress signal 31 hours ago." A pause. "We came as quickly as the detour allowed. I apologize for the delay." I looked at the ship behind them. I looked at the equipment cases. I looked at the water processor, which two of her crew were already carrying past me toward the settlement. Without waiting for an invitation, because the settlement clearly needed water and the invitation was implied. "You're not Coalition," I said. "No," she said. "I aimed the beacon at Verith Station." "I know." She reached into a case at her hip and produced a small data tablet. She held it out to me. "You may want to look at the routing log." I took it. The display was active. I read the first 3 lines and stopped. The beacon's signal had not reached Verith Station. The frequency I'd calibrated, the one I'd pulled from the manual, the one I'd done by hand, with a lamp in the middle of the night, while Tessine slept on a cot in the corner of the tower room, was listed in the routing log as Emergency Broadcast Band 7, Pre-diaspora human standard. Decommissioned in active service roughly 9,000 years ago. Decommissioned in active service. The log's next line noted that Earth's deep patrol network maintained passive monitoring on all pre-diaspora emergency bands as a matter of standing protocol. It had been doing so without interruption for 9,000 years. My signal had not gone to the coalition relay at Vareth Station. My signal had gone to Earth. I read the line twice. I looked up at Kale Orvith's sealed helmet and could not see her face. How, I said, and stopped and started again. The frequency. The manual I used was a Vareth Coalition Standard Issue Emergency Comms Guide. The emergency bands listed were coalition bands. The manual was old, she said. Not unkindly. Pre-diaspora human emergency frequencies bled into the early Vareth Coalition comm standards during the joint infrastructure period. Most modern editions have corrected the listing. Older ones still carry band 7 as a coalition auxiliary frequency. She paused. It isn't. I looked back at the tablet. The routing log showed a timestamp. My signal received at Earth's sector 9 Deep Array Station at 0347 local, which was 7 minutes after I had keyed the transmitter. The Ardent's margin had been on a long-range geological mapping run 22 light hours spinward, conducting survey work on an uninhabited system. Upon receiving the distress relay from the Deep Array, the Ardent's margin had diverted. Arrival time, 31 hours, 14 minutes. The log noted this as 11 minutes over projected arrival due to a gravity well correction on the final approach leg. The officer had apologized for being late. Behind me, I could hear voices. The survivors coming out of the shelter, the sound of someone crying with relief, the mechanical hum of the water processor already running. Tassine appeared at my elbow and looked at the tablet in my hands. "Who are they?" she asked. "They're human," I said. She considered this. She looked at the ship. She looked at the crew, moving through the settlement with their equipment cases. Quiet and efficient, and entirely uninvited in the way that help is uninvited when it is necessary. "Did we call them?" she said. I looked at the routing log. I looked at Band 7. Pre-diaspora human standard, decommissioned 9,000 years ago. Still monitored, still live, still listening. A wire running silent through the centuries, connecting some ancient human infrastructure decision to this pale green morning. This ration canister transmitter I had built in the dark, to 18 survivors who needed water. "We called someone," I said. They heard. Kale Orvith had not moved from the gate. I turned back to her. "The Vareth Coalition," I said. 11 months of silence. "Do you know? Sector 9's relay station will have more current information than I do," she said. "I've already flagged your colony's situation in the distress log. Someone will know to look." I nodded. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't ask what it would cost, or what obligations it created, or what Earth wanted in return, because she had a water processor running, and a medical kit open somewhere inside my settlement, and she had come 22 light hours. Because a 9,000-year-old listening post had heard a woman keying a distress beacon by lamplight in the middle of the night. I held out the tablet. She took it. "Thank you," I said. "Heard you," she said. "That's enough." She walked past me into the settlement, and I stood at the open gate for a while, looking at the routing log entry I had already memorized, and at the plane, and at the pale green sky where Earth's survey corvette sat quiet on its landing struts, engine signature low and even. We did not call them. They were listening anyway. That was the part I could not stop thinking about. Not the rescue, not the water. Not the fact that somewhere in the galaxy a solid civilization had looked at an old emergency band and decided that keeping it live was worth the cost, year after year, millennium after millennium, in case someone needed it. Someone had needed it. I went inside.